I'm still here. Title of my presentation, if your brand's menu isn't bold, then what the cuss is it? But first I want to tell you a little bit of a story. That's kind of why I'm here. And my brand is 100% about storytelling. So I'm going to guess a lot of people in the room haven't heard of Erbert and Gerbert sandwich shops before, or as another vernacular, our Erbs and Gerbs is what people call us, our fans and our fan base. But I want to talk about storytelling, and I want to talk about who we are and where we've come from, just so you have a foundation and a base and understand what we're all about. So Erbert and Gerbert sandwich shops started in 1988 in a little town in northern Wisconsin called Eau Claire. It was founded and it was just a little tiny shop on Water Street in a college town, and yeah, it was kind of crazy. I mean, my alma mater. I mean, I'll give you a little bit of background about me. I'll kind of back up, but so I've been with the brand for about a year and a half, and I, like Steve said, handle all things digital and social related. And menu comes into that, and marketing and products. So we'll get down that train a little bit. But UW Eau Claire is where I actually got my degree. I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. I live in Minneapolis now. So kind of tracing all my steps in my short 33-year existence on this planet, it's kind of crazy that I'm back to where I was at for about 7 years in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. So then now back to the brand, looking at it, it all started in Eau Claire, right? And from 31 years ago till now, we are now in 14 different states with 92 units. We have a couple different kinds of units. We have what we call traditional units, and we have non-traditional units. And all of our traditional units, we have 56 of those. 3 of them are corporate owned, and the other ones are all franchise based. And the other ones, the non-traditional side of things, those are on college campuses, specifically in the food systems, right? So like anywhere from 3 to maybe 8, depending on the size of the school, different food choices for the students. So those aren't necessarily franchisee owned and operated. They are managed by food management systems like Aramark and Cisco. So we've now branched out. This obviously isn't the number of locations clearly on the map, but just the states that we're currently in. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing there in those locations specifically. So let's go into the story of Erbert and Gerbert sandwich shops. This is a man by the name of David Shippers, and these are his children that he told the stories of Erbert and Gerbert, Herbert, to when they were younger, all about life, love, happiness, pursuit of friendship, and what that ended up turning into. Little guy right there in the middle by the fireplace, his name is Kevin. And when Kevin grew up in 1988, Kevin started an Erbert and Gerbert sandwich shops to tell the legacy and the stories of his father that told him these stories as he was a child. So this is our cast of colorful characters. We have the Flash, the Gurf, Comet Candy, Tullius. So we have all these different character names for our sandwiches. Things like the Narmer, which is, yes, a turkey and avocado sandwich, but it has a name, a character name, an ingredient name, as well as then the story that goes behind the sandwich as well. We have 17 different sandwiches plus on the menu, and I'll talk more about that strategy and kind of where we go from there, and where we've been, and now where we're headed. So back to this map here, I was talking about traditional and non-traditional locations. Our non-traditional locations are more on the fringe states, right? So we have like Oregon and Florida, North Carolina, Indiana, Ohio. But our backyard market really is the upper Midwest. So Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, being our major metropolitan Minneapolis, Twin Cities, where I currently live, is where most of our store locations are. And that's kind of where we're living and breathing in our current state. So what does that mean? What does that look like? How do we grow? This is a student college campus. That's where we start. That's where our brand really, really comes to life. So those college campus locations, that's where we're trying to be with that consumer, right? So we're looking for times in which we can spend with our potential consumers in those college settings, right? So when they study, when they work, where they like to dine. So being in the beginning of their journey is where we're starting college campuses. That's kind of what we are. We look at ourselves as that college brand, so we can captivate an already captivated audience in a specific centralized location. They get to know our brand, they get to know our stories, they get to love it, and then hopefully and eventually it follows them through their life cycle stages. I mean, I'm going to give you a great example, not of myself, but a lot of people. I went to a small college town in northern Wisconsin, and the people that I met at school, some that moved there to go to school, even from Minnesota, they now stay and live there. And what have they done? They've gone through these life cycle stages, such as, went to school, saw the brand, knew the brand, learned about the brand, ate the brand, and then they got a job there, and now they live there, and they got married, or whatever that might look like, and they had children. And so now they're introducing their children to the brand and going through those life cycle stages again. So that's kind of how we're looking at our brand and our growth, and that's seeding those markets in specifically college locations, and then hopefully sticking with that consumer through all the stages of their life. So this is what I hear the most when people are like, "Oh, you work at Erbs and Gerbs?" Yeah, I always used to get Erbs and Gerbs. I was super wasted after bar close. Love those weird sandwiches. It's some professional marketer somewhere out there, I'm sure, right? Really professional. But it's kind of crazy that's kind of what I hear most, because you found it on your college campus, and that's where you enjoyed our sandwiches, probably for the first time, most likely in the time that we've been alive. So there's more stories than just that, right? It's not just people that are wasted, and I get it. There's a lot of people that eat sandwiches at tons of different times, but that's one that I hear quite often myself. But I want to introduce you to someone with all that backstory. I want to kind of fast forward. You're like, "Hey, the guy's going to talk about menu. Quit talking about where you've come from, what you're doing." But I'm a storyteller. Our brand is all about storytelling, and that's how we ingrain everything into our potential consumers, current and hopefully futuristic. But I want to introduce you to somebody. Take a look at this.
What the cuss happened to sandwiches? They used to be the great American food, the food onto which you could pile all the other foods, the food that could be art, that could be eaten. But now, they've been reduced to fast delivery or just fresh whatever, or just folded meat. Well, get those weak sandwiches out of here, because sandwiches are back! But not just any sandwiches, Erbert and Gerbert sandwiches! Ones with dramatic ingredient combinations like the chicken and chipotle citrus barbecue. How about delightfully confusing food mashups like the chicken and cranberry wasabi sandwich? We got mustard, pepperdew mustard. We got pesto. Yeah, we got pesto, cool! Faster, fresher, meaty doesn't cut it anymore. If your sandwich isn't boiled between the breads, then what the cuss is it?
So that's Kyle. He's our talking sandwich. He's kind of crass. He says it how it is. Very straightforward. He really doesn't give a shit what you think. Just eat some sandwiches. He's pretty existential, kind of insane. But so that's the fast forward, right? So we're looking at things like crazy innovative flavors, right? So cranberry wasabi sauce, what? Pesto mayo, tangy sweet chipotle citrus barbecue, pepperdew peppers, right? That come all the way from South Africa. They have this sweet, tangy characteristic to it. So that's our mantra that we currently live by, is being bold between the breads. And being here in the last few days, this is my first Brand Insider Summit, and this has been crazy great. I mean, I've had a great time. I've learned a lot of stuff. I've had a lot of affirmations of things that I do in my day-to-day. So to be amongst a lot of my peers here has been really great. So people like, looking at Burger King or listening to the Popeye story as an example, right? These are bold and engaging moments. And we're just taking ours out of that context and just literally saying that's what we're going to be. We're going to be bold between the breads, and it can mean so many more things, but that's where it's going to start. We're going to start with the core of the flavors, right? And with that, it's going to expand so much more than I even know in the short time that we've had this mantra, which literally right before I joined the brand, this was kind of created and concepted and put out there. And then Kyle came into the mix as kind of like our pseudo spokesperson. So bold between the breads is going to evolve over time, and it's going to mean so much more than just flavors, right? It can mean so many different things to so many different people, from myself at the level I am, to the general manager at a location, to customers inside of the store. I've went out on a mission in the last few months to ask and talk to consumers at stores, just casually wearing a red Erbs and Gerbs shirt with an Erbert Gerbert logo on it, and saying, hey, have you ever heard of like bold between the breads? Do you know what that means? And most people, right, we have to do a better job of that clearly, is, to get them to understand, and that's the mantra, and like, duh, at the end of the video there, and the mnemonic, kind of ingraining that in your head, right? So that's kind of where we're at, and then where we're moving to with certain limited time offers and other sandwiches. So these are some new illustrations that we got going on with our Gerf and our Bork and our Neuron sandwich. These are some posters and illustrations going up in store, and utilizing these on all different channels, from social and digital and other print channels as well. But it's still the continuation of telling those stories, right? Every sandwich that we currently launch in an LTO fashion doesn't necessarily get the character given name, but inside of that, depending on the success of it and depending on the feedback, there's potential it might go up on that menu as a full-time instance. And then it will get that character name, a story will be derived, and then we'll move through it from there. So the one that I want to point out is the one in the middle here. It's Neuron. It's kind of near and dear to my heart. It was, when I joined the brand, it was the first, I came in the middle of an LTO and helped promote one, and then this Neuron was the first LTO in 2019 that we had launched, and I got to be full-fledged part of the strategy behind it, and it's pretty crazy. I'll kind of keep going on the story here, but the Neuron is a mac and cheese barbecue brisket sandwich. And it's like a heart attack, right? It looks pretty insane. Like, what WTF, mate? Why you put those two things together? Like, really? Like, it really, and that's what we got. Like, you get a lot of off-putting people like, I'll never eat that. That looks gross. Really? Why would you? Like, what? But it's kind of insane. It really took off. And with that, I don't have it up on the screen, but I'm going to pull up my phone. I'm going to read you the story of our Neuron, or mac and cheese barbecue brisket sandwich. Erbert Gerbert had a very special relationship as brothers. They were the two best friends that anyone could ever have. One day, while traveling along on Halley's Comet, which is one of the sandwich names, Erbert asked Gerbert if he knew how the human brain worked. Gerbert, quickly trying to come up with an intelligent answer, found himself puzzled and told his brother he had no clue. Erbert told Gerbert all about how information in our brains passes through electrical and chemical signals that are carried by neurons through special connections called synapses. Without neurons and synapses, and the synapses that allow information to be carried through, life would not exist. It's the same relationship that mac and cheese has to barbecue brisket and Erbert has to Gerbert. There are things in this world that just cannot exist without each other. You might say it's a match made in cosmic heaven. So that's the story of the Neuron. Reading all the sandwich stories when I joined the brand, you really have to immerse yourself in it to understand it, like any of you guys, right? Like, you really get into your brand. You really become passionate about it. I've worked on tons of other brands in my life. I've become passionate about those too. So I just try to exude all of my energy into what I have in the moment that I'm living. That's where this sandwich comes in. So you're probably also asking yourself, for those that don't know the brand, many of you out there, what the hell's on top? Is that, did the stylist forget to are those mashed potatoes? Or what is that on top of there? Well, those are called guts. And I could tell you all about guts, but there's another guy that can tell you about guts.
Oh, I know what that is. Those are guts on top of that sandwich, specifically this sandwich's guts, which were forcibly removed in order to make room for more ingredients in the sandwich. Sure, it's a sacrifice. It's even a little painful for us sandwiches. But as I like to sing every Tuesday night at Karaoke King, if it makes you happy, well, it can't be that bad.
So there's Kyle talking about guts for us. So that's the story behind guts. And we gift those to every one of our customers. Many people dunk them in our soup. We have sandwiches, soups, salads, tons of desserts and drinks and sides and stuff. So we gift you the soft, fluffy, delicious guts that come from inside the sandwich. And Kyle does a great job explaining that. So let's dive a little bit more into our menu optimization. I'm going to specifically keep picking on the Neuron sandwich because that was one that we found some really, really great success in last year. So much so that we ended up relaunching in the end of 2019, rolling in then into 2020, a whole campaign around brisket is back. So we brought back the mac and cheese barbecue brisket sandwich, and we brought along a couple hot friends. So we brought along barbecue brisket bacon and cheddar sandwich, as well as a barbecue brisket peppadew and barbecue brisket sandwich, or peppadew mustard, and pickles is pretty delicious as well. So 3 hot brisket sandwiches come back in that category, and this is currently we have 4 panels in most of our locations. This one doesn't clearly show the LTO panel, so there's another usually 4th depending on where our POS is. That'll be like whatever the LTO, example, big brisket is back panel. So this is currently what the menus looked like for, gosh, I think it's like the last 4 or 5 years. Hasn't been a lot of big changes. Small little sandwiches, we had numbers. So if you think about our brand, if I haven't confused you already with these character names and these, can you just tell me what's in the damn sandwich, right? We also added this, our menu had numbers, it had small little pictures of the sandwiches, it had the ingredient name, it had the character name, it had the full description of the sandwich. We don't have the actual story on our menus because that clearly is going to be very long. It's going to be on all of our web and digital information. But then looking at menu optimization, and this was an exploration that was happening through 2019 in the LTO season that we were going through with our Brisket is Back campaign, and looking at the successes of that. So the video of Kyle when he was talking about those four sandwiches that had cranberry wasabi, peppadew mustard, pesto mayo, and chipotle citrus barbecue. Those 4 are the top ones here, being the Spartan, the Quattro, the Titan, and the Apollo. And those are actually a quad LTO launch within the last 5 years. And those actually stuck so well. Apollo being our #1 best-selling sandwich, chicken and chipotle citrus barbecue. The Neuron in its time and existence came really, really, really close to almost topping the Apollo sandwich. But that's kind of where the menu was led in the years where those LTOs were, long before my time. But then, where have we gone now? So we are in test market with our current new menu design. We tested a location in Wisconsin, one in Minnesota, and then we did one at our traditional location that we have out in Denver. And so in enters our brand new menu. And I'll break down these panels a little bit. But I show the LTO panel here. Our promo panel, in this case, since there was an LTO period during some of this testing, we went with we cater both flavor for all occasions. So we have catering, and it was pretty amazing to see that like catering is not as great of a focus, but being that it's pretty simple to just put messaging out there and what will happen. And adding this promo panel of catering really upped a lot of the catering business in those 3 locations, just simply by saying we cater both flavor, and putting a large box of, our Colossus box of sandwiches on there as well. But as I move through these panels, I kind of want to show you guys exactly what's happened and talk about what went on inside of these test locations and the kind of successes and downfalls of it. Because I'm not up here to tell you all the success stories. I could show you all the positive things, or talk to you about all the positive things. But there's also negative things that happen too. So we learned from that before we're actually going to be re-rolling this out to system-wide gosh, I just got an email the other day, I forget the date, but literally the next couple of weeks, it's going to be full launch. So LTO panel, catering increased. It was kind of crazy, but it seems so simple. Like if you just put something in front of somebody's face and understand, like we have these, you can buy these, you should get these. It was pretty cool. So what we really wanted to focus on was that journey, right? I'm up here to talk about storytelling. It's our brand and that golden triangle rule. But in this case, we always, when customers come up and you're like, I'll have the Narmer. And the first question that cashier asks is, do you want to make that a combo, right? Do you want chips in a drink? Do you want soup in a drink? So we really pulled that off the back side of the menu and put it front and center and really put you down a journey. So make it a combo or pick two, what we call our couple up. You get a half a sandwich and a cup of soup. So we found some interesting things. We really highlighted on the old menu that I didn't stay on the slide too long, was all about couple up. And couple up was a really interesting concept, even for myself, knowing the brand. People didn't really understand it. People didn't really get it. So we rolled in, got some inspiration from our other counterparts, rightfully so, and currently utilizing the pick two concept. And with that, we really saw some great success. Yes, our cashiers are already saying, do you want a combo? Do you want chips in a drink or soup in a drink with that? But placing the combo in the pick two front and center as your first journey in the menu, it really made some leaps and bounds. We're selling more soup in this case with the couple ups than we had before. But then now I want to move from that in this journey and then showing you these sandwiches. So as you can see here, on the bottom of this panel, we actually added Neuron and what we're calling Beacon, our barbecue, brisket, bacon, and cheddar sandwich to the menu. So the successes of those LTOs are moving on to that menu showcase, and we're gonna roll this for the next 6 months or so. We're gonna check it out, see what it does. I mean, many of us are marketers in this room, and we live in this gray area, right? Aren't we all just like experiment? We're just very experimental. We're like scientists. So that's kind of where we're going now. We have these LTOs and we're bringing them on the menu. You can still see some of the favorites there that we have from Titan, Flash, Gerf, Narmer. Then we're going into these bold flavors. As you can also see, we took off the numbers. So that freaked out a lot of our consumers. Because that's what, I come in and I order the number 7. I always have. I've been doing it for 10 years. It's like, where did it go? Don't worry. It's still there, and you just point to them on the menu, and like, we love this. This is big, large sandwiches, really focus on those bold and delicious flavors, and call out those sandwich names first. We want to harken back to our heritage. On the other menu, it was really all about that ingredient name, but that didn't really represent who we were. So we're really calling out like Quattro, Spartan, Comet Candy, Eruptor, Apollo. We're putting that stuff forefront because that's who we are, and that's what we're about. So that's what we're going all in on. And then the third panel, or the fourth and final panel here, is really focusing on those soups and macs. That's a really quick add too. When we launched the mac and cheese barbecue brisket, we had the soup category, but it enabled us to also open up this whole new category of mac and cheese, which helps with our kids' meals and helps in the family style setting as well. And then we added our salads to our menu. You could technically make any sandwich into a salad, and we're working on some culinary innovation right now on launching brand new salads potentially later this year. So at the end of the day, what have I kind of learned throughout this week? It seems so trivial, right? That people buy experiences, not sandwiches. We've been talking about how do you make things go viral? What do you do? How do you get people into your store? How do you get people to order online more? Average ticket ring up, all that kind of stuff. Like I just kind of stated before, we're hearkening back to those roots of storytelling. And we're just going to try to stick tried and true to who we are and be bold between the breads. And just think about why people come into your... I mean, people have so many choices, right, nowadays, especially with delivery. We've talked a lot about that third party. Like, my sandwich brand's been delivering for 31 years. So have pizza places. But now everybody else can deliver. So let's talk about the experience that people are having with our brands instead of thinking about how we got to get people to buy that thing. People are always going to be hungry, and that's lucky for us, but we have to show them with our delicious menu, our bold products, and our awesome content that we put out there that this is all about experience, and it's not necessarily about that silly sandwich. So I'm going to leave you with our friend because I just love him. And there's a lot more Kyle videos out there. I don't have all the time to show you these, but check it out.
Cranberry sandwich is a tribute to my ex-girlfriend. Kyoko, I hope you see this. Her favorite pet was a chicken, so there's chicken on it. She worked at a day spa, so I put some cucumbers on it. And bacon was her middle name, so I added some of that. But the most important thing is the cranberry wasabi sauce. Cranberries because she's sweet and tangy and kind of mean to me sometimes, and wasabi because she recently broke up with me and moved back to Japan. I'm nothing without you, Kyoko. Kyoko! Kyoko! Oh.
Well, I challenge all you guys to be bold between the breads.
Thank you, Spencer. We have time for questions for Spencer.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was great. How do you determine how long your LTOs are going to run for, and then what are some key data points that you look at to make sure, besides sales, to make sure that they're going to make it on the menu or not?
Sure. So we run our LTOs in a 6-week fashion, usually 6 to 8 week fashion. Right now we're looking at pretty much almost every quarter, not necessarily on the quarters right now, really challenging ourselves to get our tried and true process down. But yes, numbers are really the main factor, and I wish I could speak to it more than like the operational individuals could speak to it on my team. But those are, I mean, you know, the metrics, that's really what it comes down to in those sales. I mean, it's also, I mean, we put like the neuron as the example. We did some extensive testing with that, putting that up against panels for likability and all the other stats that you put it up against on a panel. But before we just were like, hey, this sounds good to us, let's just throw this out there and launch it. We're also thinking about things like partnerships as well. Like, how can we partner with other brands and our suppliers, our meat suppliers and things of that nature, to do co-branded stuff? The sandwich that I was talking about before or right when I joined the brand, was our spicy chicken sandwich that was with Tabasco. So we kind of had a partnership there. But kind of to round that out, it really comes down to the numbers, and then the response from the consumer, right? Like, that's who you have to listen to. That's who's eating it. And if the numbers don't show, well, we're not going to roll it on the menu. So.
How do you know that you're not being too clever by halves, and that your storytelling is really more for your benefit than for the customers, and that this actually is resonating with them, and that they're reading, first of all, that they're even reading this stuff, and that they really are getting into an experience of that brand on the level that you're really hoped for?
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it. Think about each of us. We have a name. We have a story. What have we been doing for the past few days? We've been meeting people. We've been learning about each other. I mean, I know more about 2/3 of these people in this room than I could have ever imagined in my life. This is great. Honestly, this is a great setting, right? This is tight-knit, intimate, and that's what we do. We tell each other our stories. Not all of the pieces of the story. There's not enough time to do that. But that's the same thing with our sandwiches, and we got to get back to the stories, and we got to tell them. And these people and our consumers that are buying our sandwiches and our products, it does resonate, and it is because they attach themselves to something that can be theirs. So.
Well, what have you learned about overkill in terms of volume? How much your menu can bear before you get diminishing returns, or you're really overwhelming the customer? Totally.
That's what we get. I mean. You walk into our sandwich shop, especially with the old menu. I mean, the new menu is still very overwhelming because it's like very big and like intense in your face, a lot of sandwiches. I think 17, 18 sandwiches on the menu. It's pretty insane. We did remove, if I went back on the slides, we did remove 5 sandwiches off of that we went through a strategic initiative with our partner in Minnesota, Cisco, and worked through profitability and likability and craveability and all that to see what was what and where we had to place things. But yeah, you're right. There is definitely a piece of fatigue with too much, and we can't just keep adding because that's why I said, like, next 6 months, we're going to see what this menu does, and we're going to watch. We're going to watch the sandwiches, and we're going to watch the numbers, we're going to take a look at what happens, and then who knows? We might go into another menu optimization activity towards the end of this year and into 2021.
Spencer Ploessl, thanks so much. That was great stuff.